Today we're going to be talking about Frederick Jones and one of his classroom management theories. This theory is called positive classroom instruction. So the goal will be to learn about Frederick Jones' theory of positive classroom instruction and recognize various ways to implement the theory in a classroom setting. Before we talk about positive classroom instruction, we want to give you a little bit of background on Frederick Jones. He was a clinical psychologist who observed teachers for over 30 years. He also researched the socialization of children. He was not, in fact, a teacher. His wife, however, was, and he created training programs to help educators in their classrooms. So the positive classroom instruction addresses all three aspects of classroom management. It addresses classroom climate, rules, procedures, and discipline, planning and instruction, and this is considered a high control theory. Positive classroom instruction is based on eliminating wasted class time by teaching students responsibilities, independence, and cooperation. This is also a way for teachers to support students in gaining self-control, which leads to good behavior and an increased lesson effectiveness. Another main key to this theory is prevention as key to positive classroom management. One of the characteristics to this instruction is being proactive versus reactive, where the teacher is already planning ahead instead of having to react to the way that students react. So the three areas that this can happen in is in instruction, motivation, and discipline, and we're going to talk about those later on into the slideshow. So the first way that you can implement this theory is in your instruction. So one of the examples that we have is say, see, do teaching, and this is where the teacher tells the students what to do, shows students what to do, and then students actively do what they are wanting to be done. This is very similar to the GRR model, which is the gradual release of responsibility. Another example of this instruction, it was be positive, be brief, be gone. This is to help with dealing with helpless hand raisers. Instead of them having to go to each student who has raised their hands, you go up to them, praise what is done correctly, and then you prompt with a VIP, which we're about to learn about, and then or direct task, and then you walk away immediately. These helpless hand raisers are essentially students conditioned to rely on a teacher instead of discovering their own knowledge for themselves. The time spent with these helpless hand raisers takes away from the rest of the class and allows for misbehavior of other students to occur while teacher is occupied with these helpless hand raisers. Essentially, this just goes back to eliminating wasted class time by making students more independent. So this VIP that we talked about in the be positive, be brief, be gone example in the instruction stands for visual instructional plans. So this is a type of visual aid. It's different from an anchor chart, and it's a string of visual prompts student can assess at will, eliminating helpless and promoting independent students. These are pictures that describe the specific steps for solving a problem, with a visual for each and every step that relies on word minimally. If you have time, you can watch this video on Frederick Jones where he's explaining what a VIP is and how to implement it in a classroom. So the next area of implementation that we have is in discipline, and so you can implement this in the classroom structure, which is the room arrangement, which contributes to a teacher's effectiveness as authoritative figure. The teacher should also have a loop that they follow that allows them to both check on the student's progress and monitor them, and that's just kind of to help monitor the behavior through proximity. Your body language is a huge part of this discipline. It wastes less class time than pausing a lesson entirely to verbally reprimand a student. And so you can see that in that looping pattern in the first figure with a circle around it. It also increases students' ability to perform on tasks, which reduces inappropriate behaviors and rewards positive behaviors with motivational incentives. So since this theory is about positive classroom instruction, you want to keep with the positive reinforcement and discipline. So teachers set up techniques to reinforce behaviors that will teach students how to act or behave in certain circumstances. In other words, they reward after a set amount of times. They have commendations sent home, and they have point accumulations to buy rewards. And so this is just a way to help students, like reward students for being good instead of disciplining them in a way that is harsh. Our third way to implement this positive classroom instruction is through motivation, and this happens in the procedures, routines, and rules. And so having these set rules ahead of time with incentives is very helpful for the students. But you do have to set this up at a certain times within the year. So when to implement this kind of preferred activity time, which is one of the incentives, is during the first couple of weeks of school, before or when bad behavior occurs, or transitioning between class lessons. This preferred activity time, or PAT, is one of the things that Frederick Jones created for his positive classroom instruction. Essentially, it's a system that benefits both the student and the teacher. It's an incentive program for hardworking students. Students can either gain or lose time for themselves, and it reinforces management responsibilities on students where there's clear routines and expectations needed to be established. This time, essentially, what happens during this is the teacher manages the students by watching what they do. If they do good with something, they get points or time points to where they get to do whatever they want. And some of these examples for what are the things that they can do for whatever they want are art projects, computer time, or science projects. Now that you've learned a little bit about how to implement positive classroom instruction, we wanted to tell you why you should implement positive classroom instruction in your class. It's because it creates a positive classroom environment. Nobody wants to be in a down and dumps kind of classroom. Everybody wants to be with the teacher that's motivated and happy and excited about being there. It also has increased classroom participation, and it has a deeper teacher-student relationship, which we know is very important for middle school age students. It also has more student involvement and limited discipline problems. If you are getting ahead of the game, you're being more positive. The students like a teacher that is positive. They're not going to be as disruptive to a positive and outgoing teacher who's ahead of the game. And there's less students sent to the office. Two critiques that we have of this theory is a potential problem in transitions. Students have an incentive to follow class procedures and routines with the PAT model for your classroom, but in other classes, however, the students do not have this motivation, which could affect their behavior for those other teachers. Also, the PAT increases the teacher's workload in terms of preparation and planning. It can be hard to find activities that will fit in with your lesson and standards and still be fun for the students. Our reflection on this theory is that it provides different perspective on how to control, discipline, and instruct the classroom. We personally thought the PAT and the visual instruction plans were the most interesting things of this theory that Mr. Frederick Jones created. The PAT was a great way to include the students in decision making in the classroom, and the visual instruction plans were innovative and effective in relaying information in graphic organizers. We hope that Frederick Jones and his positive classroom instruction has provided some useful knowledge for you in your future classroom. As we close and reflect on this presentation, we would like you to also reflect. In the free space of your note sheet, please complete 2 of the following 3 writing prompts. Write 1 sentence reflecting how you felt about this theory, write 1 sentence saying how you could implement this theory in your classroom, or write 1 sentence detailing what you would not include in your classroom. Again, choose 2 of the 3 of these and please write it in the free space of your notes. At this time, you can pause the video and reflect on your notes, please.